Alignment needs a little work. First cruise in 2024, baby. Oh, I miss this car. Back on the 1969 Camaro in this video, so let's get right into it. In the last video, we had a complete and total suspension overhaul on my beautiful Pro Touring 1969 Camaro. Completely outfitted this thing from front to back with the full QA1 catalog. Upper A-arms, lower A-arms, front coilovers, front sway bar, and their brand new first gen F-body 4-link. Looks absolutely beautiful. Those of you guys who tuned into the last video know that it was a lot of work. It was a long video. I had a full ride tech setup before that, but more than happy and more than honored to be working with the guys at QA1 to get this thing handling like it's on rails. Just about got it finished up in the last video. In this video, we need to finish up some minor details, hopefully get this thing back on the ground, get it all dialed in and running and driving, just like a proper Pro Touring first gen Camaro should. So, gotta get the drive shaft on, which is proving to be difficult because when I was painting the rear end last night and wheeling it around the driveway, at some point I lost one of my U-joint straps. So that is somewhere in the grass or somewhere on the driveway. Of course, I leaf blowed the whole driveway, so that thing's probably gone forever. So gonna try and find that later with a light maybe. But get the drive shaft back on, get the rear brake lines hooked back up, get those bled, get the exhaust back on. We've got to make a coilover adjustment both front and rear. Car looks awesome on the ground, but I think it's way too low. I think we're gonna have to bring it up about an inch probably in the front and the rear. Then I'm just gonna go around, make sure everything is torqued to spec, to the QA1 specs. Just double check all of our suspension work. If you guys are doing suspension work, make sure you double check everything, make sure everything's tight. The last thing you want is loose suspension components. So with all that being said, let me roll under the car, get to work. Let's get this thing back together. Can I never find what I need around here? Because I never put anything away. That's probably why. There's a glare for you. That's better. Good morning, everyone. It is bright and early on a Saturday morning. It's about 7:30 right now. and I've got a full weekend of stuff I need to get done on the cars, on stuff around the house, so I'm up and at it bright and early. Happy Saturday. Over the last few days, I've kind of been picking away at this thing. Obviously, she's back on the ground, got the exhaust on, went to Advanced Auto Parts and got a new U-joint strap to replace the one that I lost out in the grass. So we're looking good back here with the QA1 4-link. My exhaust, wheels are back on, brake lines are hooked up. Got my wife out here, had her help me bleed the rear brakes. Adjusted the coilovers front and rear, and although this is not the final ride position, I don't think, it's pretty damn close to how it was before. I think the rear needs to still come up just a hair. Perfect ride for me is the rear, you know, either level or just a little bit, like a touch higher in the rear than the front. And right now I think it's backwards. I think the rear on this side is just a tad lower than the front. So, but we're pretty close. And right now I'm almost done with a video on the C8 Z06, getting this thing broken in and some mods done to that. And I'd like to get it up on the quick jacks. So I think I'd like to back this car out. It's first start of the year. It's now mid-June, I can't believe it. And then swap the C8 onto the quick jacks, and then any final adjustments we can do, now that the Cobra is finally out of the lift bay, I can put this thing on the lift. It'll be easier to make some final adjustments to the coilovers, double check all of the torque, and just do a good once over of all the work that I did to this thing. Make sure our suspension is good to go. And then of course, it's a new year. I have not changed oil in this thing since I put the LS3 in it, which was in fall of 2021 or fall of 2022. I don't know, I can't remember, but it's been basically at least 2 years since I've changed oil in this car. It only has like 500 miles on it, but I'm gonna go with a new Wix filter and Brotella T6. So yeah, she's due for an oil change, and then she should be ready to go for hopefully an awesome summer of cruising. So like I said, I got a ton of stuff to do this morning and today and this weekend, so I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna hook up the battery, start this thing up, let it warm up for a little bit, let the oil circulate, move it in the lift bay, and we'll just keep plugging away. Oh, keys. Gotcha. Welcome back to life. Fuel pressure. Leaks. Let's do it. A little bit of a squeaky belt. Maybe I got some water or oil or something on it. Other than that, LS3 sounds just as good as she always does. Oh. charging. Wideband looks good, good oil pressure. We're good. Back her out. Now that is what I'm talking about. Well, it is a couple days later. I had to take a break from the Camaro for actually a little over a week just to do house projects and working on the C8 Z06, which I've been driving, is outside, and you guys know how it goes on this channel, just other stuff. But last night, spent some time on the 69 Camaro, and man, I think we nailed it. Started off in the back here and adjusted the 4-link. It's gonna be hard to show you. I probably should have done it with the lift and air, but basically where those lower mounts are right there, there's a couple different mounting options. I went up one because QA1 wants the shock length to be between 13.5 and 14.5 inches. And to get the ride height that I wanted, that shock was gonna be, I think, a little bit too long. So I just moved up the mounting position a little bit, made a coilover adjustment, actually a couple coilover adjustments, really dialed in the rear. Came up front, did the same thing, had raised those up a little bit since it was way too low. Ended up making it way too high. Came back, lowered it down a little bit, tested it, you know, jounced the suspension. Still not low enough, lowered it down a little bit more, and I think we got it, boys. She is looking right, just like a 1/4 of an inch lower in the front than the rear, but shoo. God bless America. Yeah, this is where writing this stuff down before you start a project like this is good. You can see we're, first of all, crooked in the rear, 26.5 and 25.5. And then 24 3/8 and 24 1/4 in the front. Last night I got it to, these are actually old, I got it to about 24 3/8 on both sides in the front, and I think 25 3/8 in both sides in the rear. Now this thing might settle a little bit more. I have not driven it at all, so I'm gonna leave it for now, and if it settles just a tiny bit more but stays kind of level like that, then I'll be happy. But that was the goal. Basically get it back to a similar ride height to where it was, maybe just a touch lower. You always want to go a little bit lower, but with it as low as it was when I was driving it into the garage, as you guys saw in the B-roll footage, it was rubbing, you know, at full lock. So got to come up a little bit, but man, this thing looks aggressive. Also, for those of you guys that have been around and watched this car last summer and last season, I took it to a buddy's shop to get an alignment and get the AC charged, and I think we're gonna go back and do the exact same thing, because if you remember, I went to get the AC charged in this. Well, first of all, I got an alignment, which is great, but now that we've redone the suspension completely, probably should get another one. I went to get the AC charged, and the Freon, or R134, or whatever the government is having us use these days, just kind of leaked out this manifold over here. And while I was doing this whole suspension process, I realized that that billet manifold adapter that I bought appeared to not be seated correctly. Simple as that. So I unbolted it, unbolted these two lines here. I believe I've got it seated correctly, as you can see by the video here that I used to, you know, visually see if I had it seated or not. There was a gap between the manifold and the AC compressor before, which is now no longer there. And I think we're gonna be sealed up here, which is good because here in the Northeast, specifically New Hampshire, and I think a lot of the rest of the country right now, record heat wave. It's mid-June, and I think we're gonna almost touch 100 degrees this week, which is, you know, like I said, setting records. So, man, it would be nice to have some AC in this thing for the rest of the summer and for the rest of the cruising weather that we have. But more importantly, this thing has not moved other than out of the garage and back into this bay since December. So I have gone over the suspension 3 or 4 times now, got the ride height about where I think I need it, torqued the lugs. We did an oil change, forgot to mention that. Fresh Wix filter and Brotella T6. So I think the only thing left to do at this point is to take it out for a cruise. It's just about dark out right now. So if I have time, I'm gonna see if I can back it out, take you guys for a quick cruise. If not, it'll be tomorrow when I have a little bit more time, and it's even hotter. So that's good, but yeah, let's get this thing backed out, get it out on the road, see if all of this QA1 suspension is working properly, if I did everything correctly. See how this thing runs. Let's get it out for its first cruise of the 2024 season.
12 seconds later.
Well, it's the next day. Got impatient, went for a ride without you guys. Didn't go so well. Made it about a half mile down the road before I realized something wasn't right. It seemed like something was rubbing, and sure enough, the front was way too low to the point that I couldn't even turn. Had to somehow get the car turned around, make it back to my road, and then drag a jack out there. jack it up, make an adjustment to the coilovers, bring them up a good solid amount, and we are still a little bit too low. I just couldn't wait, and it was dark out, so it wasn't worth filming anything, but you guys didn't miss much. Anyways, today it is even more nuclear hot out there. It is like 100 degrees, 100% humidity. Excuse the dehumidifier running in the background. I'm trying to keep everything from condensating in here. But I realized a few things. One, obviously the car is too low in the front. The rear did not settle at all and is basically perfect. I don't think I'm gonna touch that. Good news is I didn't hear or feel any driveline vibrations or anything, which means hopefully it nailed the U-joint angle. The wheel is obviously nice and centered in the wheel well. Everything I think is good in the rear. The front obviously needs to come up a decent amount. I think I measured like 23.5 inches, and I think I'd like to be around 24.25. So yeah, need to adjust those a little bit. More importantly, the car felt a little bit squirrely, so I was kind of pondering that for a while, and I think I've figured it out over here. Gonna do a quick string alignment. We did just have this front end completely apart, so I guess I should have checked this, but got the steering wheel straight, got my string line straight across the front tire here. This is a perfect example of a quick, dirty, at-home alignment. Any of you guys can do this. I got 2 jack stands and a piece of string and a tape measure. That's it. And this should be good enough to get us to the alignment shop. Some guys run like this all the time. It's no big deal. But basically, we know that we are nice and parallel to the tire back here by measuring at both the back and front of the tire, making sure we are parallel, perfectly parallel to the rear tire. Then we know that our string is straight in conjunction with our rear wheels, and we can check to see how much toe we have. So up front on this tire, it looks like I'm at about pretty much dead nuts 2.5 inches in the back, and about 2 in the front, which means we have, say, 1/4 inch toe out on this side. On this side, I don't even need a tape measure to see that tire is way, way toe out. So I think that's gonna explain my squirrely handling a little bit. Also got my little digital angle finder here on this front tire, and we're at about, I think, 2.5 degrees of inward camber, or negative camber, I guess the Honda Civic and VW kids call it these days. Before I started all this, they were both at about 1/2 degree. So basically, I'm gonna go back in my QA1 instructions, see what they recommend for a street car for camber and toe. We're gonna get it pretty close with a tape measure, and that should be leaps and bounds better than what I had last night on the road, feeling a little bit squirrely, and should be plenty to get us to the alignment shop. Don't know if I'll make it out today. We got some storms coming, and like I said, it is soupy out there. So in the garage, where it's a little bit cooler and a little bit less humid, I think I'm gonna take care of our alignment. And one thing that has been on my list is I'd like to seam seal the rear quarters. This has been on my list for a little while, and if I show you guys, whoever did the bodywork on this car did a great job, but if we look down here, you can see that there's a gap between the inner and the outer quarter panel. And the same thing is basically true on this whole wheel well. There's no rust or anything. It's nice and clean. There's just a gap there. And my fear is that if I don't seal that up, you know, dirt and grime, and then eventually water will get in there, and then we could have a rust problem. So I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna use some fine line tape just near that edge. Shout out to a viewer of the channel who owns Decker Tape for sending me some of this awesome automotive masking tape. We'll start with the fine line, and then move up to some of this thicker stuff. And then I'm gonna come through with some 3M seam sealer, apply it with a brush, and seal up any of those seams where those quarter panels meet. So that should keep me busy for a little while for tonight, at least until maybe later this evening when it cools down. If not, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. The weather's kind of iffy, lots of thunderstorms and stuff. But yeah, enough talk. Let's get to work. If your beer looks like that, it's hot out. Still dealing with this heat wave. I think today is the last day of it, per se. It has just cooled down enough with some thunderstorms that are supposed to be rolling through that it's bearable to have the garage doors open. But it is the next day, and even though it probably doesn't look like it, got a lot done. Got the car in the air and cranked up the coilovers, and also messed with my Ride Tech True Turn, basically inner outer tie rod adjustment thing there, and got our toe basically between an 1/8 of an inch and a 1/16 of an inch in, so toe in, which is what both Ride Tech and QA1 recommend. So that is going to be far better than whatever we had going on over there. I'll get some body shims or alignment shims to do, the A-arm and get us a 1/2 degree or so of camber inward whenever I get my alignment. But this should be as good or better than it was when I had it out last fall. The old string alignment, works just fine to get you on the road. Got the seam sealer done back here. It's going to be hard to see because I already got it all buttoned up, but basically just a real thin bead. I was real careful with the fine line tape because I don't want to be able to see it, but I just want to know that we are nice and sealed up along that seam. Looks awesome. You'd never be able to tell from out here, but now I know that it's protected, and we're not going to get a bunch of rocks and dirt and water in there. Same thing over here. So we're aligned. Coilovers are cranked up. They look okay. They're actually higher than I'd want them to be right now, but I only fell for that once. Not falling for that again. I know they're going to settle more than this, so I'm going to leave it like this for now, and we'll take it for a drive and make adjustments from there. But I cranked them up significantly, so it should be a lot higher and shouldn't leave me stranded at the end of the road again, unable to turn. So that's done. Alignment, coilovers, seam sealed the rear quarters. Actually touched up a little spot on the splitter right there with some touch-up paint that I wanted to fix. Did that while I was doing some stuff. Gave a quick coat of matte black paint to the inner wheel well there where the tire had rubbed. Just all stuff I was doing while the car was in the air last night. Wheels are torqued. Added air to the front tires and rear tires. Just get everything at like 30 to 35 PSI, 30 in the rear, 35 in the front. I think we're ready for a cruise. The weather is not. The radar is looking like we could get slammed at any minute, so it's going to be kind of touch and go here. If I have time and the weather allows, I'd either like to take it for a ride or maybe even give it its first wash since December. This thing is just covered in fingerprints and grease and dust from this whole project and pollen just from the spring, so the wheels are disgusting. But it would be really nice to give this thing a wash. But yeah, we'll see what the weather does, and either way, I'll bring you guys along for the ride. But I'm itching to get this thing out on the road. Oh Lord, she coming. Alignment needs a little work. Feels good though, 45 miles an hour. Butter smooth. Steering feels much better. A lot less squirrely now. Brake check. First cruise in 2024, baby. Feels good. Let's pull over here. Make sure we haven't rubbed the tires through the fenders and just give it a once over. Oh yeah, it's much better. We'll get back home and measure it, but That is what I'm talking about right there. Phew! Just a little bit of tuck, plenty of clearance here, a little bit lower in the front than the rear. That's what's up. No banging, no vibrations. Liking what I'm feeling, liking what I'm hearing. I've had it up to almost 60 miles an hour, 0 vibrations, which means all that geometry, math, hard stuff paid off. I think we got the U-joint angles right, our pinion angle right. Haven't made any real adjustments to the coilovers yet. Shoestring alignment. We're off to the races, boys. I miss this car. Brakes feel good. I still need to burnish these brakes in. I really haven't even stomped on it since I installed the C6 Z06 brakes. Man, this thing feels great. Don't feel anything rubbing. That's about 4 or 5 miles on this thing. Let's pop it back in the garage, check everything out, make sure nothing's rubbing, nothing's seriously wrong. It feels great, but always good to kind of break this stuff in slowly, go a little bit further each time. Just in time for more rain. Can't complain too much. This spring has been beautiful. Tons of cruising weather, not a lot of rain. We actually really needed this rain. That's how you know you're getting old and you say things like, we needed this rain. Worried about the lawn, she's looking a little dry. Anyways, first cruise in the Camaro, well, technically second, but the first one was a disaster and you guys weren't there. So as far as you guys are concerned, First cruise went awesome. It was so good to rip this thing again. Man, she is looking sweet. Ride height is just where I want it. Absolutely perfect. My steering wheel's a little crooked. Not really sure how I messed that up. Maybe the old string alignment needs a little bit of work, but it did feel very good on the road, so maybe I just didn't have the wheel perfectly straight. Who knows? But there it is, guys. Fully done up, driving, running down the road, feeling awesome. Handles well, nice and tight. QA1 suspension front and rear. I couldn't be happier. Car just feels like it's on rails. I am putting the sway bar on hold. Got it in a box over there. I just want to drive this thing right now, and I'm afraid that I'm going to need to do some exhaust mods to get that sway bar to fit. But I've got some rear differential mods for that little 10-bolt, 8.5-inch rear end coming up real soon. And I might try and revisit that at that point. That'll be coming up in the next video, along with getting this thing professionally aligned, charging the AC, and just hopefully driving the bag out of this thing. That's why I built it. That's what I intend to do. Gonna get it on a dyno, see what this bolt-on cammed LS3 puts down, and then just give her hell, man. Give her hell. That is gonna do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, consider doing so. It really helps out the channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. We will catch you in the next one.